super entertaining maybe, because does anyone know what we speak about in Joshua 5? Who knows their Bible very well? Circumcision. Amen. I think it's fitting that maybe a man preaches on this. Let's read it, and as we read it, we're just going to unpack this amazing chapter in the Bible. It's been so good. If you don't know, we are preaching through Joshua chapter by chapter. It's a good discipline to do because it means that we leave nothing out and we wrestle through the hard things. And can I just say that God wants you to wrestle through the difficult questions. And I read the Bible, and we had an apostolic gift last week, and I explained what that meant. But I received an apostolic gift, a grace on my life to read the Bible every year. And one of the blessings of doing that is I know that I have covered everything. And so when I come and I have to process decisions that I've made, I know I have the full counsel of God. And so it's so important for us. Please, I want to encourage you. There is no question that God will not answer and cannot answer. Sometimes He says He might need to take you through a process of answering that question. How He answers it is different for everyone. But He will answer your questions. Boys, Jeremiah, He will answer every single one of your questions. You boys have got lots of questions. And if you don't answer those questions now, you're going to go into the world and a whole lot of guys are going to come tell you, no, this is this. And you know what? Because you read the whole Bible, you say, no, you can say what you want. I know the truth. And I've asked myself every single one of those questions. It sets you free, my boys. It sets you free. When your friends say, hey, you need a little bit of courage, you say, listen, I know where I get courage from. It comes from the King of Heaven. Righteousness makes bold lions. You are bold because you're righteous. You're not bold because you think you're a cool cat. You're bold because you have the cool cat living inside of you. And He's not just a cool cat. He is the cat. He is the Lion of Judah. And let me tell you, when you know that, you start to live free and you start to live powerfully. Answer the questions. Don't let the devil trip you up. Let me tell you, you will come. I want to just say this. You will come to church. It's necessary for you to debate everything in the church. I've debated the tithe. I've debated leadership. I've debated everything. I need to answer every question. God, by His grace, has offended me, and He will continue to offend me until He shows me what's inside of me. Because until you know, and He tests us, because until you know what's inside of you, or don't know what's inside of you, you are not free. You are free when you've asked all the hard questions. And you're not scared anymore because you've looked at those difficult things in the eye. And if you find yourself reacting and getting upset, then I'm going to ask you, who is your God? If you find yourself easily offended, who is your God? My friends, the church has been going for 2,000 years. I've debated everything and it's good. There is change that needs to come in the church. And we are definitely doing some things at Citygate that I think are different to how the church has ever operated before. One of them is we have full-time elders that are working, that elders are working in the marketplace all of the time. Because one of the things we want is that to see is the activation of the priesthood. Every one of you is responsible, not just me and Derek and Christoph. Everyone. You are all called to preach the gospel to all nations. You are all stand before God, and you will all give an account for what you've done in your life. And my friends, one star shines brighter than another into eternity. And if you think that just going to heaven is the answer to your problem in life, you will stand before the judgment seat. I'm saying this, my friends. You will stand before the judgment seat. Yes, you're in heaven, but you forfeited your rewards, and that is going to be painful. And that's why circumcision, we will talk about it, is painful. That is why childbirth is painful. And we're going to ask, why did God make circumcision so painful? Why did He even give us pain in the first place? It's because He's not a hard, horrible Father. He's a Father that knows the cost of what it means to live a half-baked life. My friends, you do not want to live a half-baked life and stand before the King of Kings. You have one life, one opportunity, 170 years to live a life of meaning and purpose. And we will all stand. And it's my job to let you know and teach you that, because I'm going to have to give an account for you. And I'm not making this about me and Derek and anyone else. I'm making this about you, because you are standing before God. So Joshua 5 says, as soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and to all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. I will not stand here and preach if I do not have an absolute conviction that I have a supernatural, powerful God working in and through me that I have witnessed and experienced. I might not yet have raised the dead. I might not yet have seen a hand, like I pray for, a crippled hand. I might not have seen that, but I've seen enough to have absolute conviction that the one behind me is more powerful than anything that's in front of me. My friend, I went through Africa messing around, still doing all kinds of things I shouldn't have. God disciplined me in my sleep with dreams that absolutely terrified me of hell, and I can tell you of the discipline that would come from a wasted life. He has spoken to me. I don't know how he will speak to you, but I can say this. Those enemies were terrified because they knew whose God Israel was. And when you know that, you suddenly have a huge amount of confidence, whatever you do, because you've got to know who your God is. And the way you know it is there's supernatural signs, wonders, and miracles in your life. I sat with a Muslim man, and I told him about the gold tooth, and I told him my story about the black boots. And what can he say? He says, Mark, I can't believe that story, but I believe it because you're telling it to me. It is a supernatural sign, wonder, miracle. You can't get your head around those stories. And those are old stories. I want stories from this week. Never forget who's your God and who's your daddy, but you don't mess with the daddy. A good father disciplines his children, and he has disciplined me. And that discipline is never pleasant. My friends, I've been disciplined by the Holy Father because he loves us. And I have to discipline my own children because I love them, not because I don't love them. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the sons of Israel a second time. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gibeath Hareth. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt, all the men of war, had died in the wilderness on the way after they had come out of Egypt. Though all the people who came out had been circumcised, yet all the people who were born on the way in the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished because they did not obey the voice of the Lord. The Lord swore to them that he would not let them see the land that the Lord had sworn to their fathers to give us, a land that flowed with milk and honey. So it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. Then the circumcising of the whole nation was finished. They remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I've rolled away the reproach of Egypt in you and from you. Here is a nation that has gone through and walked through the Red Sea. Here is a nation that has been fed by manna in the desert. Here is a nation that has been fed by quails. They have literally lived in the supernatural every single day of their lives. And they didn't believe him. And they still disobeyed. And God said, you know what? So you can live in the supernatural, signs, wonders, and miracles, and you can still not believe. My friend, signs, wonders, miracles, as important as they are, signs, wonders, miracles, no guarantee that you're going to believe. These people watched the dust storm move. They watched that storm move. They literally had walked with God, yet they still chose to disobey. We can come to church. You can do all the things. You can do all the right things. You can even, the Bible says, Jesus says, they did signs and wonders. They prophesied in my name. They healed in my name, but I don't know them. God says, how do you know? You'll know that you know him when you obey what he's doing. If you obey what he tells you to do, he says, I'll come and make my home in you. And the peace of God will reign in your hearts. And so this whole nation for 40 years had not kept the Passover and not been circumcised. And he said, now you're not going to have an inheritance. My friends, you can walk through this life and you can get saved. I believe they're saved. This is not about justification. Justification, you can't lose by your bad works what you can't gain by your good works. When you are justified and adopted into God's family, you can't lose your salvation, okay? But you can lose your reward. They didn't lose their salvation. They lost their reward, and they did not go into the land of milk and honey. That is a severe thing. So what is circumcision? Why does God use circumcision? What is God speaking to us through this thing of circumcision, which is a removal of a layer of skin in a man's most sensitive area? It is that area of his body that gives him the greatest pleasure. It is that part of his body that enables intimacy and regeneration. And he says, I'm going to take that part of your body and I'm going to do something where you're going to experience an enormous amount of pain. And that is going to be assigned to you, and there's going to be something in the spiritual realm that seals something over you. And when I think about circumcision, it's funny, I started thinking about childbirth as well. It's very similar. Childbirth, you're getting one of the greatest blessings of your life, but let me tell you, an enormous amount of pain goes into it. Now, I know today my own children have gone through that process of circumcision, and they give you nice anesthetics and all these things, and you can get epidurals now, and you can have Caesars. But back in their day, let me tell you, it was very, very painful. Childbearing was very, very painful. Why is there, in the thing that gives us most pleasure, why has God given us the most amount of pain? C.S. Lewis says that pain is God's megaphone. I think it's important for us to know, and it's important for God to communicate, that I'm blessing you with something, but you're going to go through some pain here, because I want you to know that if you lose the intimacy of me and you, the same intimacy that you're sharing with your wife, the joy of that intimacy, I just want to say this, it's God who invented sexual intercourse. It's God who thought about the pleasure of this. It's nobody else. And he said, if you will not obey me, if you choose to lose your intimacy with me, you are going to experience an enormous amount of pain. And I never want you to forget this. If you know the Bible, you know that when Jacob and his sons, there was a Hittite named Shechem who raped Dinah. And he tried to negotiate for her as his wife, one of Leah's and Jacob's daughters. And Jacob's sons were absolutely mad. And so they said to them, they tricked them, as Jacob was very good at doing. He said, okay, if you want to become part of us, then all your men must be circumcised. So this king took all his men and they circumcised them. And when they were in that enormous amount of pain, the whole of Israel, or Jacob's brothers and their men, went and killed them all. My friends, it was a painful thing. You can do nothing. And so when they got circumcised, for 3 days they were out. There was no anesthetic. They were probably just gripping onto, like, crunching a branch, like in the cowboy movies, between their teeth. In the old days, the fruit of intimacy is the ability to regenerate yourself. The fruit of the most The most pleasurable experience between a man and a woman is a child that's made in your image. And yet we live in a world now that says that we can have a whole narrative of LGBTQ. Can I ask you, do you know if that narrative, which is absolutely from Satan to kill the whole world, if we all believe that, there would be no human beings left? Because you can't make a human being from two men, and you can't make a human being from two ladies. If we really believe that's the truth, then we may as well kiss the human race goodbye. One and one does not make a positive and a negative. You need a positive. Two positives don't make a. How does it go? You need a positive and a negative. You need a male and a female to make a child. Isn't that the most amazing plan? God takes intimacy, the thing that is most pleasurable to us, and He says, now I'm going to just explode this, take this one step further. I'm going to give you a child that's made in the image of Melanie and Warren, of Mark and Nikki. And I know there are people here that don't have children. My friends, I just want to share this to you. I've sat with people who have adopted. I was involved with the Tembeletu for many years, and we've facilitated the adoption of many, many children. I've sat with parents who have their own biological children, and they've had adopted children. I want to say to you, they said, the love I have for my adopted child, go and speak to Toby afterwards, and ask him about the love he has for Jordan. Go and ask him about it. You can experience the same amount of love. We are adopted into God's family, and we experience everything of the love of the Father. And so God says, as a reminder of me and my covenant with you, remember that day that you got circumcised, and you will remember because you were so in pain for 3 days. That's the kind of pain that you're going to be in if you choose another way. And today He rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. It's something about pain that is amazing, that it rolls away the reproach. It's funny. It's like this powerful statement in the spiritual realm. When you go through something, the guys have recognized it in that transition into adulthood. And that's why guys do these bungee jumps, and they do still do a circumcision, because there's something in the transition of a boy to a man, when they walk through pain, that it does something to your psyche that actually sets you up and makes you strong and removes the reproach of Egypt, the reproach of the fact that you are a slave. Their identity for how many years was they were slaves. And God says, you are no longer slave. I remove your slave mentality. Can I just say this into South Africa right now, into the spiritual realm? We remove the slave mentality out of this country. We remove it because you are not slaves. As someone said, we have all been slaves. We are all a slave to sin. Jesus saves us, and He redeems us, and He calls us sons of God, and our identity as sons. We have access to every single spiritual gift available to us, and we are now adopted into His family. And the reproach and the identity of the fact that we were slaves is removed in one day. And you will remember that day, because it was a painful day. And it was painful what happened to you. It's painful when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden. Your sin has caused God so much pain. It reminds you that the pain of the cross was what Jesus had to pay to justify you, so that you could be sons and daughters of the living God. And it's because you've been through that pain that actually it somehow seals the identity. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail for 2 minutes, but for 1 minute to say, disciplining your children, I tell you what, I think sometimes needs to be painful. I'll leave it there. And it was in that place that for 40 years they celebrated the Passover. It's interesting. We speak about signs and wonders and miracles. You know, they experienced all the signs and wonders and miracles every day in the desert. And I think when you are getting saved, when you're in that place, God rains His righteousness on the saved, and the redeemed and the unredeemed. He rains His goodness. He's kind both. And it's like His supernatural grace is on you when you're getting saved. But when you come into the promised land, you don't necessarily see signs and wonders and miracles every day. Because we learn to actually walk with God in the rhythms of God. A sign and a wonder and a miracle. Miracles by their nature don't need to happen every day. But there is a time, and there was a time in Israel's history when they saw the miraculous literally daily. And I think there are times, I think it's an absolute miracle that the people that are unsaved still do so well in the world. It's an evidence of God's grace and His love for the people that have chosen to rebel. There are people doing evil things, such evil things in the world today. And God still says, I still give you blessing. I still give you children. I still give you intimacy. I still give you so many things. I still send the rain and give your crops. There are unrighteous people that still receive the miracles of God. Isn't it amazing? But when we come into His kingdom, we learn to go by His rhythms, and we don't need to see signs and wonders every day because we are walking in our inheritance, in the land of milk and honey. That's what we're trusting here, to walk in the land of the milk and honey. And so there was no longer manna for people of Israel, but they ate of the land of Canaan that year. When they came over the river into Canaan, the manna stopped, the quail stopped, and now they could eat of the land. My friends, there comes a time in our lives when we stop having to have signs and wonders and miracles. There comes a time in our life that we are so confident in God because of the blessings of our life that we can simply just eat the manna. It's like, the fruit and we can drink the milk and we can enjoy the honey. Because we have revelation that God has created everything. We don't need to live on a sign and a wonder every day. We actually live in the presence of God every day. And we don't need Him to do supernatural things. Okay? When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with a drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, Are you for us, or are you for our adversaries? And he said, No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped him and said, What does my Lord say to his servant? And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place that you are standing is holy. It's an amazing way this chapter finishes. It starts with the nations terrified of the God who's with them. It ends with the God who's with them standing on the other side as a man. Joshua thinking, who is this man? He wasn't like the 7-foot, 20-foot angel. He was a man, but he was Jesus manifesting. He said, and Joshua said, whose side are you on? Are you part of the enemy? And he said, no. Whose side are you on? Because I am the Lord of the heavens' armies that goes before you. And we need to ask ourselves that question today. Whose side are you on? South Africa today is asking a big question. Whose side are they on? My friends, we need to pray for South Africa today. We are in unprecedented but exciting territory. For the first time in 30 years, we have a government that is going to be held accountable. Whatever happens, there's going to be a coalition that's hopefully going to be announced soon. And there's pretty much, if you listen to Frans Cronje, there's pretty much two ways this can go. It can go an atomic bomb route where it literally just decimates, or it's going to go to a rainbow nation where we work together, and I pray it will. And we work together to heal our land. My friends, we are a divided society. If you look at these elections, not a lot has changed. We are still so divided by our tribalism. We are divided by the whites, the Zulus, and every other party that wants to have their say. We are divided. Do you know, my friends, do you know what happened this week? A friend of mine sent me a picture of my old school dining hall. Do you know, let me just tell you, I went to a school in the 80s. I can't believe I'm that old. In 86 to 90. Before apartheid was officially banned. And our school invited African boys to be part of that school. I honestly want to say this. I'm not trying to boast of this. This is the absolute truth. Lepatswana Tebelo Tabana is one of my best friends from 1986. He's one of my best friends. I was the best man at his wedding. I went to his mother's funeral in Tokoza. And 10 years after we left school, I was talking with my Chubbs and I call him Chubbs, we're talking. I said, Chubbs, surely racism is not a thing anymore. He says, Mark, racism is alive and well. I said, no, Chubbs, surely. I mean, honestly, we're over that. He said, Mark, racism is alive and well. I said, Chubbs, surely not. My friends, I went back to my school 20 years after I'd been there. I went into the dining hall. You know what happens at the dining hall? All the African guys are around one table, all the other guys are another table. There is no integration around the table. A friend of mine, this is now 30 years after I've been at school, sent me a picture. He was sitting in the dining hall. He didn't even know what he's showing me. I looked at the picture and I said, can you believe it? It's 30 years later, and right in the middle, there are only African guys around the table. My friends, the only hope for South Africa is revival. The only hope. Every tribe and tongue will be in the kingdom of heaven one day. We've got to deal with us. There is no ways a human being in the way, and United Nations, whatever they want to put there, whatever political party tries to get us working together, the only person that will enable us to love the person next to us is Jesus Christ in us. We need revival in this country. And we've got to trust God's sovereign hand over the rainbow nation, and that it will not be a rainbow that's been perverted by the devil and LGBTQ. It is a rainbow nation of different colors of people that work together for this land to see it prosper into the years to come. Amen. I want to ask you, just as we close, which side are you on? I want to ask you, which side are you on? Jerush, just come play a bit. You have a choice. This choice has come out every single week for the last 5 weeks. Which side are you on? Are you on the Lord's army? Which side are you choosing today? Are you going to choose to be part of His army, or are you going to choose to be a grumbler in the desert? My friends, you can be a grumbler in the desert, and I tell you what, you will lose your inheritance. God will not be mocked. He has given His only Son. He has paid the highest price for us. He will not be mocked. And so as Jerusha plays, I want to ask you, if we all stand, I want to ask you, if you want to say today that you want to stand with the Lord and His army, then come and make it public. There's something of a public declaration into the spiritual realm. So if that's you today and you want to say, I want to be in the Lord's army, please can you come stand in the front? If you say today, I don't want to play games with God anymore, I want to be part of the Lord's army, please come and stand in the front. I want to do business with God. I no longer want to be this and that. I don't want to be a grumbler in the desert. I want my inheritance. I want the land of milk and honey. I want to give my life to Jesus. I want to give my life to Jesus. I don't want to play games anymore with this stuff. I'm telling you, this is important stuff. There comes a time in our life, my friends, enough is enough. We need not one person, 3 people. We need a nation of people standing up and taking responsibility for this country. We need prophets standing up and saying there is another way. There's another way, not the narrative of the devil, but the narrative of the kingdom. The prophets that stand up, who ring the bell and say enough is enough. And let me tell you, never discount your voice, any of you. Each of you has a voice, and that voice adds to our voice. It's His voice in you, and you need to speak. I need to speak. We need to speak.